Here's a question. Are freshmen getting more playing time now than they have been in years past? And we'll take a look at some Bearcats freshmen that could impact the team this season.
Are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. It's free and available everywhere you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's Monday, August 12th, it's August 15th. Is it? Yeah, 2022. John Garcia Junior, the Director of Football Recruiting for Sports Illustrated, joining me today for the first part of the show. John, I know you got a call waiting on you, so we're going to have you on for as long as we can, but good to have you back. And I just want to ask you this question because I was thinking about this. Are freshmen now getting more playing time than they have been in years past?
That's a great question, Alex, and I think that answer is resoundingly yes. I think the combination of the game, remember, 15 years ago, a lot of these college programs were still run-oriented, I formation, kind of coming downhill at you for the most part. But the game has changed, right? Spread football has just influenced all levels of football, and that really began at the high school level. So I think over time, particularly offensively, these quarterbacks, these receivers, these players were more geared and accustomed to the demands of spread football because that's what they run at these great high schools in Texas and Ohio and Florida and California. So now as that influences the college and pro game more and more, people are more equipped mentally to make the transition from one level to the next. Now, physically, that's always its own conversation. But look, if you're getting recruited at the Power Five or, soon to be Power Five level at Cincinnati, you obviously have enough physical prowess to potentially contend as a true freshman. So it's usually those two elements that you have to sync up on to be able to contend as a true freshman. You got to be physically there, but mentally, you've got to be a little bit closer towards assimilation. And I think offensively, the culture shift in college football and pro football has pushed for more young players playing. And then defensively, there's certain positions where we see an easier move than others. I think pass rusher has become one of those spots where you're seeing younger and younger players making a true impact because they can be situational. They can be sub defenders and have a limited role, but still an important role on third downs in this example. And coach can say, hey, 3rd and 8, this is your responsibility versus run. This is your responsibility versus pass. Go get them, as opposed to an entire game plan and a week's worth of preparation at the highest level mentally for some of these guys. And then, defensive backs, depending on the position, particularly corner, I think that's another spot where you see a lot of younger players having an opportunity to play right out of the gate, especially aggressive defenses that play a lot of man coverage and really put a lot of classic traits on their defensive backs. I think those programs are more inclined to play younger players because it is less mental. It is more about, playing your keys and playing your man as opposed to something that's down distance personnel and scheme dependent with audibles and checks like you would have as safety or linebacker have to know inside and out. So, yeah, I think certain positions and certain sides of the ball lean us to more young guys playing. We see it just about every year, and I expect to see it in 2022 as well.
So where we're getting here is, and by the way, today's conversation with you is presented by LinkedIn Jobs, thanking them for being the official recruiting sponsor for recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. So where we're getting, John, is colleges are adopting the spread offense because that's what they're running at these high schools. And I think we're kind of seeing that too at the professional level where, I think recently within the last 10 years, pro football offenses have gone to the spread because that's what these college offenses are doing. And that's why you're seeing more quarterbacks make the jump from college to pro, and they're doing it seamlessly.
100%. Think about the RPO game. Think about some of the up-tempo and faster elements of football we're seeing at every level. These kids are now coming up doing that from age 10, 11, 12, all the way through high school. So by the time you get to college, you've got 6 years experience in a more up-tempo scheme as opposed to growing up in the 90s where you played more conventional football. A lot of people were still running the triple option. You had a lot of I formation, power running schemes that were relying on play action from a passing perspective. You don't have to do that nowadays. Everybody's throwing, and everybody's throwing younger.
So let me ask you this, and I know we've talked about this before. So should Cincinnati then adopt a spread offense because they're going to the Big 12, and a lot of the Big 12 teams, so Baylor, Alma, well they're leaving, but still Texas, Iowa State, Texas is leaving too, and UCF who's going into the Big 12 like Cincinnati, they're going to bring a spread offense, but should Cincinnati adopt a spread offense if they want to keep churning out these pro prospects and keep allowing young players like a Desmond Ridder, maybe like Evan Prater if he ends up winning the starting job, like all the young players on offense, should they adopt a spread offense?
I think a lot of these spread concepts have jumped into these traditional offenses. So while you're not running no huddle with 5 receivers and no tight ends and running backs like some of these air raid offenses, there are spread elements in a lot of these. Cincinnati's taken a ton of pistol and shotgun snaps. A lot of single back sets have spread elements and secondary reads off of these run plays that come from these spread offenses. So you can still have spread elements and designs without being labeled an air raid or a true pass first spread offense. Heck, UCF runs a power spread to run the football. So there's really different variations of it, but it is about creating a similar look to lull the defense asleep, just like we used to talk about with the option and the triple option and the single wing. It's just from a pass first perspective now, where you have a run option to counter it as opposed to a pass option to come off of it. So I think most offenses have elements of that built into it. But yeah, they're not all Mike Leach, air raid, go, 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 let's throw it 50 times a game type of offenses. But every offense, including UC's, is going to have some type of spread element, which is becoming more associated with the pro game and pro style, which used to mean under center, I formation, quarterback dropping back. And now pro style means a game, a spread element type of offense that gives you options to run or throw the ball on every single snap. That is not going to slow down anytime soon in college football. So those elements are still going to be a part of a lot of these offenses.
So can Cincinnati, because I've talked about this a lot this week, Cincinnati's a run first team, and I think that's their identity, and we know that. But can they still win with that in the Big 12?
Absolutely. I mean, look at Baylor, right? I mean, we used to think of Baylor as this crazy explosive offensive team, but under Dave Aranda, they've become a defensive first run the football type of program. And they just won the Big 12 with that formula. I think 2 of the more offensively laden programs are leaving the Big 12. So I think that could push towards more defensive and run first teams to occupy some of those spots in the Big 12. UCF, we just talked about, wants to run a power spread. Cincinnati is run first. BYU absolutely wants to run the football. So I think 3 of the 4 teams coming in are going to be a little bit more inclined to run the football compared to Texas and Oklahoma. So I do think in those regards, and with some of the transition we've seen with the remaining Big 12 programs, Baylor, Oklahoma State has been more defense and conservative offensively than we've come, to be used to with them as well. So I do think Iowa State is in that same boat as well. So I do think there's a little bit of a culture shift going on in the Big 12 where that perception of they're going to throw it a million times a game is really starting to look, very old relative to what we're seeing on the field with some of these Big 12 programs. So yeah, Cincinnati style absolutely fits the direction of what the Big 12 looks like on the field.
I know you got a call coming, so I'm not sure how long we can keep you on. John Garcia Junior, Director of Football Recruiting for Sports Illustrated. Here's a question I touched on earlier this week. So recruiting is such a hallmark of college football. But one thing that we don't celebrate, because when you say the word, it doesn't have the fancy, flashy ring to it as recruiting does. But when a program is able to develop its players, like Cincinnati has, Does that make it easier to recruit players, or does that ease the, hey, if we don't land this 4-star, 5-star player, we still got these players we can develop into eventually becoming, NFL caliber players. So when a program is able to develop players, John, does that make it easier and better for their recruiting?
100%, Alex. And yeah, I'll leave you with this one. Appreciate the time today. Development is still key. NFL and the potential to play pro ball is still one of the primary deciding factors for just about all of these top level recruits that are going to come off the board in high school. So the programs that have a track record for development are always going to be in better position. Yeah, it might not help you flash in the portal as much or do some of those things, but from a traditional high school recruiting standpoint, especially positionally, if you're known, hey, this school has produced X amount of pro players at this position, that type of noted and tangible development will always sell on the recruiting trail, because the opportunity to play pro ball has become, for a lot of kids, the number one deciding factor when it comes to making their college decision. It's not winning on Saturdays or playing in the right scheme or relationships, or certainly not a degree. It has become, can this school be the one that prepares me for my potential as an NFL or pro level football prospect? So development is becoming more important than it ever has become in recruiting. So I appreciate you having me, and have a good rest of the show, boss.
Yes, John Garcia Junior, I know you got to run. Thank you as always so much for your time. The director of football recruiting for Sports Illustrated, our conversation today and every day presented by LinkedIn Jobs, thanking them for being the official sponsor of college recruiting across the Locked On Podcast college channel on the Locked On Podcast Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free, at linkedin.com/college, or Locked On College, terms and conditions, do apply. Jeez. As you gear up for fall, like the Bearcats are doing, like we're doing here on Locked On Bearcats, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to help it make it easier for you to find those people you want to talk to faster and for free. You can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. So you heard John Garcia Jr. talk about the development of players. You heard him talk about freshmen getting more playing time. And it all goes back to why I believe Evan Prater should become this team's starting quarterback. Because if Cincinnati is going to win in the Big 12, and I think they will, they have to go with the guy I think who long-term is going to have the most talent. And from all the comments that I've been reading from all of you on YouTube with every episode, some of you agree with Evan Prater being the starting quarterback. Some say Ben Bryant's going to be the starting quarterback, not because you think he is or want him to be, but just that's the way it is. And it wouldn't shock me if that is. But at the end of the day, what has made great players throughout this program over the last several years great is they're getting on the field right away, because they're running spread offenses. They're running empty sets. It's guys like Desmond Ridder. It's guys like Josh Wiley and Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant. It's all these players, younger players. No longer do you start when you're a junior. No, when you're a freshman, right away you are starting as a college football player. And the experience that you get is huge. And now when you come to a school like Cincinnati, you're not just going to be riding the bench for 2 years and, hey, you get to shine your junior and senior years, but it ultimately won't lead to anything in the NFL draft. The fact that the development of players has led to 9 NFL draft picks, and the fact that the development of players continues to churn out player after player, the next wave of players. If that continues at Cincinnati, that is going to be astronomically important and beneficial to the program. That's why young players are getting more playing time. Look all around the country and look at these schools. Bryce Young's a young player. Tua started right away. Jalen Hurts started right away. Deshaun Watson started right away. Trevor Lawrence. Eventually, Clemson realized he was the answer. A true freshman, and there he was already after one season being talked about as the best quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning. That shows you, hey, you can play as a freshman. Because colleges, and it used to be, you have to learn the college offense, you have to learn the pro offense. But as John just alluded to, and as I've seen over the years, look at schools like Oregon. When they went to read option, they made, option offenses, they're giving quarterbacks options. When you give a quarterback options, it's not just the players that he has. It's not just the weapons that he has. It's the system. Look at the NFL, for example, and I'll just bring this in here. A lot of people, including me, think Jimmy Garappolo is not a great quarterback because he's not flashy. He's not Patrick Mahomes, who he lost to in the Super Bowl, or Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, who he backed up for many years. But the thing that Jimmy Garappolo had, and he didn't always have the best weapons in the world. I mean, the year they went to the Super Bowl, the Niners' leading receiver, I don't think had many receptions. But the one thing that he had was a system. He had the best schematic head coach in the NFL calling plays for him and giving him all these options. Misdirection, the defense never knowing where the ball was going. A strong running game. Getting guys open like George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Kendrick Bourne. You look at his offense in 2019. Their leading receiver was George Kittle at 85 receptions. He's a tight end. Deebo Samuel had 57 receptions to lead all receivers. Emmanuel Sanders had 36. Kendrick Bourne had 30. So what you're seeing at the college and pro level is not the quarterback having to learn, a whole new offense. Programs and teams of the NFL are going to cater to the talent that they have. Why do you think the Bengals drafted Jamar Chase? Well, they should give him an offensive lineman to protect him. Yeah, but what good is having 5 offensive linemen to protect you if you don't have that many options to throw the ball down the field? If you hadn't drafted Jamar Chase, I guarantee you the Bengals don't make the playoffs last year. Because teams would have said, okay, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. We double team one of them, we only have to worry about the other one. Now it's, okay, we double team Jamar. Well, then we're going to leave T open, but then there's Tyler Boyd in the slot. Do you see how hard it is when you have to defend 3 very good wide receivers? If you just had 5 offensive linemen, which is fine, and the Bearcats do, and that's why they're going to be, potentially just as good of an offense this year, if not better. But also, the Bearcats now have a strong receiving core. Tyler Scott has potential to build off of what he did last year. Trey Tucker's got speed that we haven't seen since Marty Gilliard. And Nick Martiner is going to bring versatility because you can line him in the slot. You can also line him up on the outside. And you also have the best tight end tandem maybe in the country in Josh Wiley and Leonard Taylor. So if you make it harder for offenses to defend you, it's not for the quarterback, you have to learn this offense. No. You're seeing, and you can say, well, that's being catering to the quarterback. That's what you're supposed to do. The saying in life and in finance and investments, protect your assets. That's what these programs and teams are doing. They're protecting their assets. They're protecting the investment, protect the franchise. And you can say, well, the Bengals didn't do that with Jamar Chase last year. They should have taken Penei Sewell. No, well, okay, look who they signed this year in the offseason. Joe Burrow has openly said in 2020, I don't mind getting hit. I like getting hit. And he played in the SEC. So Cincinnati, the one thing that the Bearcats have done to Ben Bryant or Evan Prater, whoever starts, is they are going to give them weapons to throw the ball to. They're going to give them a running game, hopefully led by Corey Kiner, and an offensive line to protect them. And that is what college football is today. And the development of players is because these programs and teams are giving them every tool to succeed. They're no longer saying, you got to learn it our way with what we're going to give you. No, it's we're going to give you everything you need to learn our system. You know, it used to be a coach needed a quarterback. Colin Cowherd, who's my all-time favorite sports talk show host, and if you want to yell at me now, if you're listening to this, that's fine. I know a lot of people don't like him. I do. Colin Cowherd brought up a great point years ago. It used to be a head coach needed a quarterback. Now it's a quarterback needs a head coach. You know, Patrick Mahomes has Andy Reid. Most creative offensive mind, maybe, or arguably, if you want to say Sean McVay, you can too. But then in that same breath, Matthew Stafford never had an offensive-minded head coach quite like Sean McVay. And look what he did last year. You know, Josh Allen had as a defensive-minded coach, but then again, he's so good, and the Bills have given him weapons like Stephon Diggs to throw the ball to. The Cincinnati Bearcats, they don't have an offensive-minded coach. What they do have is a head coach who understands the relationship between a head coach and a quarterback. And that allowed Desmond Ridder to develop. It's having a guy like Gino Guidugli. And what's going to be interesting to follow this season is, does Gino Guidugli's stock as a potential head coach rise? Does he want to leave Cincinnati? I don't know. But now it's quarterbacks need a head coach. Certain quarterbacks do. Like Matthew Stafford, Jimmy Garappolo. And you wonder why those two teams played in the NFC Championship game last year. Jimmy Garoppolo is not the most talented quarterback in the world, but he can be maximized with a system like Kyle Shanahan's. Matthew Stafford had a lot of talent. He just needed an offensive-minded head coach that was going to get the best out of him and his team. And ultimately, that's what happened last year. Evan Prater or Ben Bryant is going to have Gino Guidugli. And that's going to be huge to their development. And if they go on to be really successful this season and years down the road, then you'll know it's because of their offensive coordinator. All right. So up next, touching on what we're going to talk about next week. Got a lot of fun stuff coming up. The season preview 5 ways, which is going to be not this coming week, but the next week. Or actually, that is next week. Anyway, so the rest of this week, and then what's coming up the next week. I'll get into that next after a word from BetOnline. You see, betonline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, heck, even esports, even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information. From live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts, they have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. The Locked On Cincinnati Bearcats podcast is also supported in part by Debbie Weckstein-Frank, a realtor with Coldwell Banker Heritage, and Steve Maloney, a lender with Prime Lending. If you're looking for a new home in the Cincinnati and Dayton area because you want to come to the area with the hottest team in college football, which is, of course, the Cincinnati Bearcats, well, I've got the personal real estate team to help you. Debbie specializes in both the Dayton and Cincinnati areas and is a longtime Miami Valley resident who has helped hundreds of people all over the country find and close on their dream home. Steve, also a longtime Miami Valley resident, specializes in purchases and refinances in over 40 states. 700 WLW can't even reach that many states. Debbie and Steve are available when you need them most, even during the Bearcats game, during the college football playoff, even on evenings, even on weekends when you are making split-second decisions. Let them help you get your offer to the top of the list. Take the guesswork out of the home buying process and hire a wide-open professional real estate team with a track record of success. Call Debbie right now at 937-672-3942. That's 937-672-3942. Or visit TeamWeck. That's TeamWeck.com for more information. Debbie and Steve will help you close on your dream home today. Go Bearcats. All right, so coming up this week, tomorrow, Russ Heltman filling in for me. He's going to recap the scrimmage from this past weekend at Camp Higher Ground for the Cincinnati Bearcats, all things quarterback battle and more. And then I'll be back to follow up on that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I want to talk about special teams because I think they're going to play a very important role this season. Then next week, we're going to do a season preview 5 different ways. So 5 different angles to look at the season. Monday, we'll look at the offense led by the quarterback battle, led by the running back room, what the offense is going to do. Then we'll talk about defense. Deshaun Pace, the leader of the defense, how the corners are going to look this season. We'll talk about the defensive line and the new look there. So that's the defense. Then also next week, Russ Heltman and James Rapine. It's an all Bearcats crew on Locked On Bearcats. My colleagues at All Bearcats, we're going to do our season preview. We'll also talk about the season with the 700 WLW broadcast crew, Dan Horde, Bo Egger, and Jim Kelly Jr. We will talk with them, the broadcast crew for the upcoming season. And then the American Athletic Conference as a whole, Chris Vanini from The Athletic. I'm going to try and get him on the show. He covers the group of 5 for The Athletic, so we'll get him on, talk about his thoughts regarding the American Athletic Conference and all the other group of 5 programs. That's all the season previews. And then the next week, believe it or not, it is game week. We are sitting here today 19 days away. Plenty to get to that week. Justin Williams will be on the show from The Athletic. John Neighbors from Locked On Arkansas. The crossover game preview on Friday. We'll talk about the other things from the first game, the quarterback battle, which is going to be the big storyline, what to watch for against Arkansas, film study, whatever. That's what we're going to have on Locked On Bearcats. It's going to be fun. The shows are going to start to get fun. Again, Tuesday, tomorrow, Russ Heltman filling in for me, recapping the scrimmage from this past weekend at Camp Higher Ground. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Frankie_Natty with 2 N's, NNATI, and follow me on Instagram, AlexFrank9_, or email me at alex3frank@gmail.com. And don't forget, most importantly, subscribe to our Locked On Bearcats YouTube channel. You can follow us, too, to get an alert every time we drop a new episode. And don't forget to make your second listen today, Locked On Big 12. That's how you get more on the conference. Everyday host Josh Neighbors and the local experts of Locked On take you across the Big 12 in 30 minutes. Locked On Big 12, your second listen. That's Locked On Big 12. For the Locked On Bearcats podcast, I'm Alex Frank. Have a great rest of your day. Russ Heltman in for me tomorrow, recapping the scrimmage from Camp Higher Ground. I'll be back Wednesday. So please don't forget to tune in tomorrow. Make it your first listen every day. And for Locked On Bearcats today, I'm Alex Frank. Have a great rest of your day.